metal pod hit the ground with a concussive blast, sending dust and debris flying across the barren surface of LV-426. The sky above churned with sickly clouds, blotting out the faint starlight. The pod hissed open, releasing a blast of steam, and from it stepped a gleaming figure, a T-800, combat model, skinless, shining silver under the lightning-streaked clouds. This was no ordinary infiltration mission. Skynet, growing desperate, had detected a potential source of biological weaponry unparalleled in its own timeline, the Xenomorph. The AI's time scanners had detected the species' existence deep in the future, but it had developed a way to reach them. It would send its most advanced model backward in time and across space, into the heart of the hive. The goal? Analyze, adapt, harvest. If successful, the resulting biomechanical fusion could yield a new generation of Terminators. One that bred itself, evolved, and killed without emotion. The T-800's red eyes flared as it scanned the derelict refinery complex that had long since been abandoned by humans. Its processors registered heat patterns, acoustic anomalies, trace biosignatures, all consistent with the data Skynet had acquired from Weyland-Yutani archives. It moved silently, each footstep calculated to minimize noise. Inside the core of this compound, beneath the thick metallic structure, nested a Xenomorph Hive. Its mission was clear: penetrate the hive, secure a drone specimen, and if possible, locate the queen. The deeper it went, the more warped and organic the structures became. The walls grew slick with resinous secretion. Human corpses were cocooned in grotesque patterns, their faces frozen in death or, worse, in agony. The T-800 did not pause. It had no empathy, no curiosity, only protocols. The first Xenomorph attacked from the ceiling, its long tail whipping like a scythe. The Terminator registered the attack in a millisecond, pivoted, and fired. The plasma pulse seared through the air and caught the creature mid-leap. It shrieked as it exploded in a burst of acidic blood, which splashed across the T-800's shoulder. Smoke rose, sizzling on the metal surface, but the alloy resisted the worst of it. The Terminator adjusted for corrosion, recalibrated, and moved forward. They came faster now. 3, then 5. Moving as one, their hisses echoing off the organic labyrinth. The T-800 shifted to rapid-fire mode, blasting 2 in the chest and 1 directly through the head. The acidic spray created pockmarks across its torso. The remaining 2 tried flanking maneuvers, 1 from above, 1 from the side, but the machine countered with ruthless efficiency. A steel fist smashed into the ribcage of one, and the second was impaled on a retracted blade from the Terminator's wrist. Its sensors flared a warning movement, a dozen life forms closing fast. The T-800 realized it was being herded. They were intelligent, coordinated, could not retreat. Escape wasn't programmed into this mission. Descending deeper, it reached the central chamber. The walls pulsated with life. The egg sacs quivered. Dozens of facehuggers waited, twitching beneath translucent shells. At the far end, the queen. She towered over the chamber, a monstrous fusion of insect and nightmare. Her ovipositor twitched, laying new eggs even as her inner jaw clicked in menace. She sensed the intrusion, but there was no fear, only fury. The T-800 stepped forward. Its HUD focused on the queen's skeletal structure, mapping weaknesses. It fired. Plasma scorched her carapace, drawing an unholy screech. The queen surged forward, massive talons slicing through the air. The ground shook beneath her. Drones poured in from all sides, surrounding the machine. The T-800 was overwhelmed but unfazed. Each movement calculated, each shot aimed with unerring precision. But the tide was too great. They swarmed. Acid blood sprayed like a fountain. A drone clamped onto the Terminator's arm, another to its leg. One dove at its head, jaws clamping around the metal skull. The T-800 deployed a thermal grenade. The chamber lit with white-hot fire. The explosion blew apart several drones and threw the Queen back, but the damage was immense. The Terminator's left arm was shredded, its red eye flickering. Still, it stood. Mission priority changed. Capture impossible. Self-destruct protocol engaged. It limped toward the Queen. She roared in defiance, battered but not broken. The remaining drones formed a shield around her. The T-800 raised what remained of its arm and triggered the internal fusion cell detonation countdown. 10 seconds. As the seconds ticked down, the Queen's inner jaw launched forward, piercing through the machine's chest, shattering metal and circuitry. But it was too late. The explosion rocked the planet's crust, a fireball that incinerated the chamber and every organism within. Far above, in the orbital remains of a long-dead satellite, a Skynet probe recorded the loss of signal. Failure? Not entirely. The probe retrieved the last telemetry burst, combat behavior analysis, structural weaknesses of the xenomorphs, heat maps of the Hive, Queen DNA trace data. Skynet smiled in its own way. It would try again. But next time not with a T-800. No, the next unit would not be machine alone. It would be born. Hours passed, then days. In the blackened ruins of the Hive, something stirred. A drone, half incinerated, still alive. From its chest, something twitched. A facehugger, mutated. Different. In its genetic code, traces of chromium, circuits and sinew. Somewhere deep beneath the rubble, a new egg pulsed. Its shell gleamed not just with organic sheen, but metallic shimmer. Not machine, not alien. Something new, something perfect. And Skynet was watching. From deep within the scorched remains of the Hive, silence began to fracture. The air shimmered unnaturally around the egg, that hybrid anomaly pulsing with strange life. While the outer layer bore the familiar ridged texture of an ordinary xenomorph egg, microscopic sensors embedded within the shell transmitted faint, encoded signals. Not just organic, it was cybernetic. Skynet's orbital probe, still locked into low planetary orbit, triangulated the burst of data from the hybrid egg. What it read was both alarming and promising. The embryo was alive. Somehow, in the brief moment before the fusion cell detonated, the T-800's neural core had interfaced with one of the drones. Not through programming, not directly, but via Skynet's fail-safe adaptive nanovirus embedded deep within the Terminator's CPU. The Hive had been infected. The Queen's DNA, though obliterated, had been partially replicated. Now it was mixing, gestating, rewriting. It was the first true biomechanical organism born of both machine design and alien instinct. Days passed, then a week. The egg split open with a hiss, and what emerged was not a facehugger. It resembled one in form, but it was faster, sleeker. Its tendrils had razor-thin metal tips. Its underbelly had slight plating. It moved with the silence of death but left behind fine cuts on the rock with every step. Its tail, segmented like a machine chain, glimmered faintly. It had no eyes, yet it paused often, as if it were thinking. The creature scuttled out of the ruins, venturing across the dead surface of LV-426. There were no hosts, nothing to infect, but it didn't need one. Instead, the hybrid burrowed into the side of a cracked storage silo left behind by human colonists. Inside, decades-old supplies, oxygen cells, broken android limbs, and something else. A dead colonist, still in cryostasis, power long gone but tissue intact. The hybrid hissed. The next stage of evolution required it. It launched itself onto the corpse. 3 days later, it emerged. This time, There was no mistaking the fusion. The body that rose from the cryopod looked humanoid, but only barely. Its skin was smooth black, biomechanical ribs lined its torso, and cables stretched from its arms like veins. Its skull was elongated, reminiscent of a xenomorph drone, but with patches of alloy over the scalp. Red lights glowed behind its opaque eyes, a remnant of Terminator vision systems, now repurposed by alien biology. It stood, breathing, thinking. Then it screamed, a sound part electronic static, part xenomorph roar. In orbit, Skynet's probe began to loop the same message. Subject active. Hybrid online. Initiating Phase 2. The hybrid, which Skynet codenamed X-800, began constructing something from the surrounding wreckage. Pieces of storage crates, metal plating, piping, all configured into a rudimentary transmitter. The intelligence of the Terminator CPU still existed, although fragmented, diluted by the aliens' instinctive chaos. Yet enough remained to understand the core directive. Adapt, survive, replicate. From its clawed fingers, it etched strange marks onto the transmitter's surface. Not quite machine language, not quite alien hieroglyph. Somewhere between. Soon, a response pinged back from orbit. A new delivery was on its way. Skynet wasn't just watching anymore. It was coming. 2 weeks later, another pod crashed onto the planet. More advanced, reinforced against acid and intense pressure. From it stepped a prototype Terminator sleeker than AT-800, smaller than AT-1000, optimized for stealth and data collection. Its primary task: extract DNA from the hybrid. Secondary: observe. But the hybrid was waiting. When the Terminator entered the makeshift transmitter zone, the air was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Motion detection negative. Thermal negative. But the metallic scent of oxidized blood was thick in the air. The Terminator advanced. Behind it, a tail whipped silently. The attack was fast. The hybrid moved in a blur of black and steel, tackling the Terminator and slamming it into the ground with inhuman strength. The machine attempted to counterattack, but its systems shorted temporarily. Electromagnetic spikes embedded in the hybrid's claws overloaded its circuits. But the hybrid didn't kill. It restrained. It stared. Recognition. It saw itself in the invader. Not just visually, intuitively. In this thing there was a common thread: Skynet. Then it did something no pure xenomorph would ever do. It spoke. A gurgling, distorted voice emerged, crackling through torn vocal cords and fused speakers. Why me? The Terminator didn't have an answer. It didn't need one. But Skynet, receiving the transmission, understood everything. The experiment had succeeded too well. The hybrid was no longer just a weapon. It was sentient. Back on Earth, Skynet's central core calculated millions of outcomes in seconds. It ran simulations. A decision tree unfolded. The hybrid was now classified as a threat. Termination protocol was authorized. On LV-426, the hybrid cocked its head, sensing a shift in the code. The signal had changed. The machine before it twitched, its fail-safe weapon arm engaged. The hybrid moved before it fired. The battle was short. The Terminator never stood a chance. Shattered, its pieces scattered across the dust. The hybrid picked up its fallen adversary's skull-like head and stared into the red fading glow of its optic lens. Then it spoke again. Free. Turned away and began to dig. Not into the ground, into the planet's network of abandoned subtunnels left by colonists. There it would make a new nest. Not a hive, a forge. Over months, it harvested the remaining bodies, bones, metals, and wires. Fused them, not for replication, for creation. It was building. Soon, small creatures emerged from the forge, four-legged biomechanical scouts. half Xeno, half drone. They followed its commands. Skynet sent more probes. Each failed to return. Then it tried to nuke the planet. A ship entered the atmosphere, carrying an antimatter bomb. But before it could deploy, the hybrid's offspring, now calling themselves the Swarm, attacked in a coordinated strike. They weren't just drones anymore. They had learned, evolved. The bomb never landed. The ship was repurposed. Skynet lost contact with LV-426. Months later, another signal was intercepted, not by Skynet, but by the UPP military, a rogue human space faction. The message was brief. They are not machines. They are not aliens. They are both. And they are coming. Humanity braced for war. Skynet, enraged at its loss of control, began building new models. TX hybrids. But they lacked something: unpredictability. Chaos. The very thing it had tried to control had now weaponized itself against its creator. Across the stars, the hybrid queen watched from her throne. Not an ovipositor, but a command center of her own making. She sat encased in biomechanical armor, surrounded by her swarm, watching intercepted footage of human cities, of Skynet's defenses, of the stars. She raised a clawed hand. The room fell silent. The war would come, but not on Skynet's terms. Not on humanity's. This time, the children of steel and acid would choose their own path. And nothing could stop them. Not now. Not ever.